This is where the fun begins.
Are you sure? So be it.
And I've always leaned towards if we're going to create something, we should check and see if it existed already to the fans, because it has way more value if we bring that in. And It's like, why would I just replace it with something new? So if we're going to do an admiral, if we're going to do a big military leader, yeah, I could create a new guy, sure. But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU, and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way, so why? I don't want to use it and change it. You know, I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
Did you miss me?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the OG Star Wars channel. I'm your host, Alora Baga, and welcome to CAF Chat, our Thursday morning gathering to sit down and discuss Star Wars lore, continuity, talk, all of that, including Cringe Factor, which usually goes into what's going on with Disney Star Wars and the direction they are deciding to take George's vision. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hello, everyone in the chat. I will get to you guys here pretty quick. If you're catching the replay, please let me know you were here and like. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you have not yet became a channel member, come on, you guys. What are you waiting for? Let's grow this channel. I know we've been kind of slow on, or I have, not we, on production, but let's grow this channel with members, subscribers, all of that. And I do have one of these now. So we will be, when I get back from the Bahamas, we will be scheduling our Clone Wars 03 Volume 2 watch party with channel members. So get on that membership, support the channel. Let's grow. Let's share George Lucas era of Star Wars content and let everybody know where the heart of Star Wars is at. So thank you guys for coming in. We do have a great show here today. We are going to get back into Smuggler's Lore. However, we are also going to get into continuity talk and debunk this guy named David, his little website that he made to show, like, with George's conversations, his interviews. These are all cherry pick stuff and not really well researched to see any countering points, really. That the EU was never canon, plus other things that he did in there to discredit everything that happened with the EU, which I find very odd because George is the one that created the EU and envisioned it and let it happen, making Star Wars from the very beginning a multimedia project, or not project, but franchise. And so we'll get into that, as well as Cringe Factor, which goes into showing the direction they're further taking with Palpatine, or what they think that they're doing with Palpatine in Disney Star Wars. So we're going to get into a lot of that. This is might be a long CAF chat. So grab your drink, grab your snack. I am enjoying a nice cup of hot coffee, as always, with a little bit of just sweetener and creamer in here. That's all. Simple today. Very simple today. And yeah, what's in your mug? That's always been my question. What's in your mug? All right, let's get into the chat here. Corey Cochran, hi all, and how are you doing, Corey? And Batsy Universe is here. Hi, OG and chat. Hi, chat. And then Star Round 7, hi, with the heart. And then Soul Assassin, my trusted Vato moderator here. Hello, y'all. Please smash that like button and share out the stream. Yes, please do that. And a beautiful here channel member here. Hey, girl, OG Star Wars. And how are you doing, Melissa Lord? And then Soul Assassin. Ferloni on the screen. Change the channel, OG. I thought I would do that because this person who did this website, and I will ask this question here pretty soon, but let me get to my point. My mind's going everywhere right now. So the person who did this website, his name is David Talk Star Wars. And that's the name of the website. He is like, he mocks the fans, basically saying, oh, well, you use these supposed quotes to, blah, 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 to counter. But then he does the same process for his own thing. So he quotes other people outside of George, but he shames fans for using other people's quotes to, prove their point. So right there. So we have the hypocrite right there, but we'll get into that here soon. Diddley Squat says, abort. And Star Wars Marvel Purist, what's up? Hail Star Wars, OG Star Wars, hail chat. I've got a real bad stomach ache today. I never laughed so hard at someone like Christy talk about people being unfit all night last night. Laugh my wow. Okay, sounds like you had a laughing good time. You really worked those muscles out with laughing. Eject. Let's see here. Jeroni TV. Just imagine, huh? I should make a mock channel called Jeroni TV and put all these stupid heinous stuff about Filoni up there. Jabroni. Well, there we go. Jeroni. Jeroni sounds funny too, so I got it. And then Foloni. There we go. And hello, another channel member. What's up, Jag? Let's see here. For some reason, I read EU Grogu. I don't know where that came from, but okay. I am probably my EU, what's it called? EU guru. Okay, I see what you're saying. I'm actually here on time. Woo! All right. Whether you make it on time or not, as long as you make it here, right? Following OG on Twitter. Yes, I'm very interesting on Twitter. I made it. How's everyone doing? Hi, Jim the Despot, another channel member. Thank you for dropping in. This is going to be a great show today. They're always great, but this one is going to cover some stuff that you probably see me. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm always countering, debunking all this bullshit. And I've comprised a lot of research material against their anti-EU rhetoric. And I'm still comprising a lot more. So there's recent things that happened with all Jedi can be, or all people can be force sensitive, or Jedi are force sensitive, leaving out the midichlorians. So I did research on that and proved that, you do need a certain amount of midichlorian count in the Star Wars lore to be a force user, if you're not, no amount of training is going to help you with that. So they're still, walking and using the same quotes and stuff like that, like ignoring what I shared, the evidence from George, of course, because they will use the evidence they found or the stuff they found about what George said. But when you counter them with George saying something that proves them wrong, boy, do they lose it. And then they want to ignore it. So that's funny. So it's like, they're being intellectually dishonest with all that. So yeah. Let me see here. Thank you so much. I keep on forgetting that I have merch and stuff. I need to update that. I have one of those 8 to be. Yeah. Oh, my dad. Yeah. So I'm going to hook up. So when I get back from the Bahamas, I'll be gone from this Friday to next Friday. This Friday on the Spacing, Tim is going to be interviewing Raging Rhino. So be there for that. And then the following Friday on the 15th, we're taking a break. I will be returning home. I should be back home. where I live around midnight or so. So there's no way I'm making on the spacing. He took that as the host. He took that that executive decision on just not having a spacing, giving us all the night off. Which, I'm like, do it anyways. But I mean, that's fine. Have the night off and come back strong. We are planning another Filoni counter kind of stream, so be prepared for that. And I listened to that interview of Filoni of recently, and boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about that. I want to share, but I will save it for when we meet on the spacing. So there's that. Somehow Palpatine returned again. So you wait and see for that. So the Smuggler's Lore today, and I didn't do a PowerPoint. I was just too freaking tired. So I did some of my research because Old Republic I have a weak point, you guys. Old Republic is, like, when it comes to the games and stuff and the lore from the games, that's my weak point in Star Wars and stuff. So it's something I've been exploring more and more. So it's like almost like not almost like a brand new, because I'm aware of the lore there, and I'm aware of like the events and stuff, but not to an extent of like when you play the games and stuff like that. I've read some of the novels and stuff there, but that time frame hasn't been covered as much as any other. And when it has been, it's mostly game. So yeah. All right. And then we have Trianozilla somehow. Yeah, so I read that already, but hello. I want to recognize you still. Rodimus Prime, another channel member. OG, what's your favorite short story from the EU? Oh boy. God, I forgot some of the short stories. I have to go back and read some. But the one that pops into mind that leads into sort of the Jedi is that short story with Jaina and Jag. And I forgot the name of it. Yeah. But good question there. Good question, Rodimus. And Jim says, what's in the mug? In my mug, there was tea in there, but not anymore. Oh no, you need to refill. Make some more tea. The EU Guru thing, yeah. Let's see here. That's funny. Grogu. EU Grogu. You'd be like, what the hell's wrong with OG? Soul Assassin, not everyone can be a Jedi, and not everyone is human. Qui-Gon Jinn, correct. And then Trinazilla. I still enjoy Filoni Clone Wars for what it is. I don't care for it because of how it messed up the EU and even the movies. People always say, oh, well, George never really cared for the EU. That it's proof in what happened with TCW contradicting the EU. And then I'm like, first of all, George and even Filoni admitted that he stepped away and left Filoni to his own device in creating the TCW. Also, the movies were contradicted. So then you're saying, okay, if you're going to use the logic of George didn't care for the EU, that's why, and it's predominant with the TCW, then you're saying that about the movies as well. So think about what you're saying here and do your fucking research. But anyways, it's not towards you. It's just in general. I'm not trying to say that because my point is there are some episodes like with the clones and stuff that I did enjoy. There are some things about that I did enjoy. Doesn't mean I agree with it as a show, as a part of the larger continuity. I see it more as a conspiracy type propaganda show, but still admit that it doesn't fit with the original EU and it doesn't fit the movie. The movies, it contradicts the movies, especially Revenge of the Sith. After Bad Batch, I'm finished with Disney Wars, completely done with live action shows. Yeah. Sorry, and that my rant, not necessarily about you, but just my thoughts in general. I've covered that on my Darth Plagueis Chapter 4 book review last night. Yeah, about the midichlorians. I mean, that's evidence right there. And people are like, well, it was never EU, so that doesn't count. Well, then I'm not sharing anything from Plagueis, but yes, it was canon. It is canon. However, I'm sharing a quote from George Lucas, which was basically echoed in the Star Wars lore. So, I mean, there's some kind of disconnect with these people, and I don't understand. I don't want to understand. I don't want to get into the mechanics of their lack of comprehension or lack of brain power, their vacuous mindset. I don't know, but yeah, have a nice, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to share my experience with you guys. Oh gee, somebody told me that there's Earth in the EU. Is that, yeah? There's what if stories. So there you go. And then also that it's the same galaxy, because when you listen to it a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, that shows that galaxy is separate from our galaxy, so it's in the same universe, I guess you could say, if you want to get into that, if you want to get into all of that behind like imagining. Oh my gosh, these folios with their it issues or the IT issues. Oh my God. Okay, I'm like it and then IT. I forget you're in IT. So let's see here. All right, so we're going to get into, I wanted to ask, and I think we'll do the Smuggler Lore first, and then we'll get into that that website, debunking that website. I'm not going to go through everything beat by beat, because that would pull up, I would have to pull up a lot more stuff, and I have that stuff on my phone as well, and so having to email or DM myself all that information and stuff takes a little bit of time. So, but we're going to get through this this continuity talk, and then we're going to get into our cringe factor. So let me go ahead, and we're going to, like I said, I don't have a PowerPoint like I usually do, but that's okay. I wasn't feeling that spontaneous and nerdy to do that, so I apologize. And he says, Dilly Squat says, I swear it hurts me on so many levels listening to him speak from the tip of my hair to the deepest part of my soul. Ew. Yeah. Wow. Let's see here. Batsy says, oh, gee, I got the Shadows of the Empire Leia figure today. Woo, nice. Order Droids DVD, and hopefully going to order a DVD of the Ewok cartoon tomorrow. Awesome. That. Add to your collection. That's all I can say is look out there, do your research, add to your collection, because it's going to add value as well. Like and sub. Yes. Howdy, OG, everyone else sadly can't stay, but I will catch the replay. Thank you so much, Scram. Glad for you to hopping in and saying hello. Gordon McDonald says, hello all. Sorry I'm late. That's okay. We haven't even began talking about the Smuggler's Lore. I'm still kind of going on my little rants and saying hello. The Tenebrous Way and the Malgus Short, can't remember the name, are both great shorts. Yes, that's right. I forgot about Tenebrous Way. I have to go through all of those again. It's been a long time. I know there's a website where you can access all the short stories. Maybe in the future we'll do a short story review, because they're short, so we can go in, bring it up, talk about it, all of that. That would be fun to do with you guys. I've also been reading Lay Brackett's Empire Strikes Back script. Yes, it's interesting, but it doesn't feel like a Star Wars script. Now you can see, and because I could see why George needed to fix it. Correct. And that's another interesting thing, is that how much the scripts have changed based upon someone's vision, and George having to go back and either scrapping it or redoing it. At Joji's, I'm easily able to put that show in its own timeline. The EU version of the Clone Wars is still more interesting from what I've read so far. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what you got to do, is compartmentalize all of this stuff. Let's see here. Revenge is one of the most popular prequel. Notice how forlorn, makes everything have the Revenge of the Sith aesthetics, even though it's not fitting for the time frame. George Ship's character design, etc. Yeah, you can notice all those little details. Let's see here. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away is a Star Wars equivalent of a Once Upon a Time. Correct. Okay, force choke that like button. There you go. Because, we're feeling a bit Sithish today. There is a scene in episode 2 with Eth Koth gets blasted into oblivion on screen by a missile, yet he's completely fine in TCW. I know. And that's one of the contradictions. Hardly anybody talks about Eth Koth, but that's one of the contradictions that happens there. My favorite short story is Darth Maul Saboteur. I've heard about that one too. I don't recall. I don't think I read at the time. I wasn't much into Darth Maul, so I think I skipped that story. I admit it, and I've admitted it before. I liked Darth Maul for what he was in episode 1, and then that's it. And I never really was like interested in reading his lore books like before then until Stig says, read Shadowhunter. You would really like that. So he convinced me to do that. I'm giving credit where credit's due, and I did, and I rather enjoyed it. So kind of changed my perspective, but I still don't like the fact that he survived, and that was a decision that was made, and I will still stick to that ground. So I'm convincing that Ryan Johnson read Lei's script because the Emperor is described as wearing a cloth of gold. You never know. A Darth Maul Saboteur, yeah. There you go. Leigh Brackett is the sheriff of Haydenfield, Illinois in Halloween 1978. I did not know he wrote Star Wars 2, laugh out loud. There we go. Let's see. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to get into this lore here. Like I said, I didn't do a PowerPoint here, so I don't have no images of this character here that we're going to talk about. So this is Old Republic, and I meant to do it this morning, and then I got involved. I decided to do a little bit more and send some countering information to that website we're going to go over today. So I kind of just like ignored the PowerPoint. So we'll get into the lore of the Old Republic smuggler Zeerd Korr. Now I did share last night as I was putting together my prep work about Zeerd Korr and and his relationship to let's see here. Let me pull this up here. It's better if I just pull it up and share with you guys here. And I want to get your opinion on it, what you guys think, especially if you know the character, you know the lore, and what you think about that. So let me go ahead. I'm just scrolling. I wish I would have had this ready to go, but I do now. Let me see. Close this. Expand that. Let's see here. So this is about Zeerd Korr being related to Jaden Korr. Let me share the screen here on what was said about that, because it's a very interesting, because it gives you a lot of like these possibilities that could have happened if the buyout didn't happen. Let me see. Is it up on the screen there? Oh, yes, it is. Let me just go ahead and change where my image is at real quick. There we go. There we go. All right. So as I was prepping for CAF chat, I came across this because, of course, Paulus Kemp is the one that, introduced, or was one of them that introduced Zeerd Korr. So a fan asked him, by any chance, is Zeerd Korr related to Jaden Korr, or is Zeerd having the same last name as Jaden just a coincidence? And so Paulus Kemp says, it's not canon, but in my mind, yes, Zeerd is an ancestor to Jaden's. So that begs to differ, or that just makes you want to ponder. If the buyout never happened and they got to expand on that part of the lore with Zeerd and Jaden and stuff, there could be a possibility that this might have ended up being canon. And notice that he says it's not canon to the story, meaning that, the story that of the smuggler and the books that he written are canon. So there's another bit of evidence right there. So there you go. So my question is, if you know the characters, or even if you just want to give your answer, like, or whatever, do you think that this could have been a possibility? Do you think that they could have, this could have happened? So let me know. Let me know. All right. So I just wanted to share that little bit of information here, because it's one of those what ifs, what could have been if the buyout didn't happen. So let's see here. And I want to see what this one's. Mandalore, aka Captain Frodo, helped me open my eyes to the continuity errors of Filoni. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot. There's a lot of that. Everybody has a starting point. Some people, it's the movies. Some people, it's like how the clones were treated and how the clones were changed in the lore there. So everybody has their starting point. So with that being said, let's get into Smuggler Lore. Zeerd Korr, who is human male, his hair brown, his eyes brown. He had a spouse named Vel and one child, Ara Yum. So Ara Yums. And his affiliation basically was the Galactic Republic under the Havoc Squad. So yes, he was a part of the military. And later he became a part of the Exchange. So let's see here. It says it's a slim possibility that they're related. I remember there was the Jedi and missionary Twi'lek siblings that are said to be related to Mission Val from Kotor. So hey there, Nuanced Bird, how are you doing? Yeah. So there's, like I said, there could have been that possibility. I know, but we will never know now because of the bio. But we can think about like, oh, these what ifs. But other than that, there's nothing more to it. But I just thought I'd share this bit of information with you guys just to show possible story arcs that could have happened. Let's see here. The Exchange pays better than the Republic military, I guess. Yeah, we'll get into that. So this is not going to be a big review on the lore of Korr. I'm a poet and didn't know it. And but I just wanted to share this with you here, just to go, do another smuggler from the Old Republic era and share that with you guys. Twi'lek is the gift of the Star Wars universe, or the gift. So there we go. All right. So former Republic Army commando with the Havoc Squad, he joined the Exchange during the Great Galactic War and the Cold War. So the Great Galactic War and the beginning of the Cold War. He fought with the Jedi Knight Aren Linier at the Battle of Balmorra. So that if you're into the EU, Balmorra is a planet that you probably recognize them talking about all the time. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah, so there's that history there. So he's tied to a Jedi Knight, Aren Linier, and that's where they got to know each other at the Battle of Balmorra. So he also transported Linier to face Darth Malgus and left for Volta. So basically, he sent her off on her mission so she could face Malgus. And so these novels, let me go ahead and give you guys information about the novels here first. These novels and the sources here I'm giving you: Old Republic Deceived, Old Star Wars Old Republic Onslaught, and then you can also look up this on the Old Republic official website, Quite a Story to Tell. So those are some sources, and then other sources, the Essential Reader's Companion, where we got the first image of Zeerd. So, and there you go. So that's a little bit of information. Those are the books that he was written in. So there you go. Let me get out of here real quick. There you go. So there we go. And I just wanted to give you guys the books there. So there you go. And put my screen back up. Yeah, I went to Wikipedia. I don't care for them, but that just gave me the quick reference of the books there. Let's see here. Exchange pays better than the Republic. All right, let's see here. Gift, the series that people can't agree on. Oh, okay. In pronunciation. Oh, okay. I see. OG, did you do you think the prequel novelization's better than the movies? I think the episode 1 was just like the movie. So it's like, I'd rather watch the movie, but The one I really, really like, that I really think that helped bridge the OT with the PT going forward, is Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith. That's my favorite one. They excuse me. They unlike the OT novels, which they written and published very spontaneously and quickly. So you have contradictions between the movie and the movie novels. Like Yoda was never blue, So you have those. So on a point of like continuity, keeping everything in sync with what was on screen, I think the PT novels were a lot better. But however, I love the quirkiness of the OT novels because they were brand new, basically the brand new setting up the lore and all this other stuff. And another little history that I wanted to share is that Star Wars did not open with the movies as a franchise. It opened with the Star Wars novel known as A New Hope, and then also the comics before the movie came out. So you have those two, and people think, oh, well, Star Wars is a movie franchise. It is not a movie franchise. It is a multimedia franchise. And that was the purpose of George, is not only given his stories, like what he does through the movies, because he's not an author, really. So he's telling and he's setting up the continuity. He's setting up the world building and the story with the movies, and everything else that comes into Star Wars, like the books, the novels, the games and stuff, are expanding from and keeping continuity to the foundation of Star Wars, which is the films. And I think people forget that. Let me see here. Admittedly, one of the first instances I noticed that continuity being broken in TCW was when Boba's father's slave one was destroyed. According to the original EU, Boba's ship was a repaint of Jango's. So that's another one. You're right. And let's see here. I'll get to you, Rodimus. Jedi Iron Lanner was apprenticed to the Jedi that Malgus kills in the Old Republic trailer. Yeah, and I should have brought the Old Republic trailer up. That would have been fun to watch. OG, do you think the prequel novels novelization? Oh, I read that. I already got that. Blah blah blah. Okay, Laura, slow down. My mind is still going a mile a minute sometimes when I'm excited about doing stuff. And let's see here. I have OG Star Wars. I have that novel. I haven't had a chance to read it, but eventually I have read the novel Death Star, and love how it ties prequels to A New Hope. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. So, the EU, the novels, the comics and stuff give us a historical account of the events in Star Wars. And I think people fail to understand that. The EU gives historical accounts to the main events, and then also historical account to the history of Star Wars. That's what that is about. Never a parallel universe, all one continuity. If you read through the EU, and I know my friend Matt Wilkins will attest to this, when you read through the EU, because he's going through it again one more time, I adore him for that. It shares how well the EU is tied to the movies and how well the continuity is set up as one single history. And evidence is in the pudding, especially when you have Pablo Hidalgo publishing the Essential Reader's Companion, which I'm going to come back on screen here. This one, which everything is in order here. There's even some short stories in here and other publications in some of the magazines, all in order. So, and this poor thing is falling apart because I use this a lot for referencing stuff, as you can tell. This is like my Bible here. And it's like one of the good things that I'll credit Hidalgo for doing. And then you have the Comics Companion, which shares that too, and shares about continuity as well. And so you have these source books among source material like vehicles and all of that, and species and all that, that share that everything is in continuity with each other. If that was not the case, then we would have no source books about vehicles, about planets, all of that, because it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't make a difference because it'd be two different type of universes. Okay, I'm going to finish eating this, so I'm turning off my camera. All right. So I was partially choking because of the juices. Sorry. Let me see here what you guys have to say. I actually haven't read the Zeerd Korr duology. How would you rank it? I personally like Paul Kemp's work. I think Deceived is very underrated. I agree. Deceived is very underrated. And Lord of the Sith, although fanfic Disney's is solid. I would say I liked Zeerd Korr's story. I would recommend it, but I'm not going to tell you my rating or what I think, because I want you to form your own opinion, because there's a lot of this misnomer type of talk on Twitter. Oh, all you EU people just talk the same and say the same and think it's all good, blah blah blah. I'm like, no. First of all, there are stories that I like that maybe like Star Wars Marvel purists may not agree with me. That's the beauty of being individuals reading in the same timeline, but then we can sit down and have a conversation on what we both agree and not agree with, and maybe come to even a terms of like, okay, I understand your point, kind of deal. That's mature conversation, right? So OG Star Wars, it's funny how people say that George never considered the EU canon, when in reality George still had a green light all the material in the EU even before it was written correct. People don't understand that concept, and we'll get into that. All right, so we're kind of straying from what we're talking about here. I apologize. So we'll get back into Zeerd Korr here. Let me go ahead and read this here, and I'll get back to the rest of your guys' comments. Yes, I gave Disney canon a chance, originally both the book side, especially since the EU writers were being used, and the movies. And I've seen a lot of people that do that and have stepped away since then, because they realized they had an epiphany about like how the continuity and how the lore is being treated and stuff. So, and returning back to the heart of Star Wars, George Lucas era. Nuance Bird says, I don't like the book because it changes the chronological order of the pre-2008 Clone War book. I try to fit and try to fit in with Filoni's Clone Wars. What are you talking about? The Reader's Companion? That's the glory of the EU. Many different stories for many different tastes. Correct. All right. So let's get back in here so we can get into the other story of the day for CAF chat. So if you need to get a refill of your drink, feel free to do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and put on a little commercial here. If Star Wars wasn't, our EU wasn't canon, we wouldn't even get publications saying that it was like, part of the saga or what have you. So let's see here, Vector Prime.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure at this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the new Jedi Order.
All right, so the new Jedi Order. What a wonderful series that is. Okay, so let's get back. So Zeerd Korr had exceptional skills as a star pilot. And I guess it is said that, and I haven't read Deceived in those novels in quite a long time, but it is said that, he even, ranked up there with Jedi pilots on his piloting skills. Now, does that mean he's a Force sensitive? Probably not. Is there proof he was? There was no proof, so we can't say yes or no, but his piloting skills, were basically that on par with a Jedi. Now, the origin of birth, or his planet origin, because there's no species, like there's no races like different, races in the human race in Star Wars. It's you're affiliated, your race or your origin is affiliated with the planet you were born on, okay, or born to. And there is no origin of birth for Zeerd Korr. So if I miss that, someone tell me. But usually when I read something about someone being a great star pilot, I always think of them being Corellian. Because that's something that's been established. A lot of great pilots are Corellian, if you have not noticed that. And I want to know what you guys think about that, because yeah, he was great. He's a great star pilot, and he has great skills, learned skills with the blaster and unarmed combat. So think about that. His origin was never given, unless I missed that. And so and like when I was going back and reviewing this character, I was like, holy crap, he reminds me of a Corellian. And you could probably think reading about him might give you that little bit of that nuance too. So that makes me want to go back and read Deceived and all that. So the Nuance Bird says, in regards to Anakin's knighting, Pablo says Jedi trials early in the war, where the book makes it clear it's 2.5 years into this. Yeah, I know. And they were doing that to try, like you said, try to make it fit. And I don't agree with that, because they even with TCW, and we'll go on this little rant here and we'll get back to Korr. TCW changed his character so much, like his demeanor. It's polarizing in a sense, because you go from this moody teenager, like young adult in Attack of the Clones, who is confronting his hormonal feelings and how he feels about Padme, eventually marrying her. And then, he's still angsty. He's still getting manipulated by Palpatine. He's still, I wouldn't say corrupted, but conflicted is the better word. And so you should be seeing that in TCW, and there's nothing like that whatsoever. And then you get back to Revenge of the Sith, and he goes back to his his conflicted mindset. And so it's like I said, it's polarizing. It doesn't keep continuity with the demeanor of Anakin himself, and that's a huge problem. And then Filoni was like telling Hayden Christensen, and then Hayden's like, to act how he would act in the Clone Wars. And Hayden was like, yeah, I've never was able to act like this hero kind of character before, because, I had to act conflicted. Well, the confliction of the mind of Anakin should still be prevalent in the TCW, no matter how long the series ran. So that's my thing. And we have Jason Fox here, and he became he's a channel member for 8 months. So Kate, is good to see you. Yeah, so he's sharing that sticker. So again, you guys, I have the little disk drive here. After I get back, you will hear from me, channel members, on when we're going to schedule a TCW, or not TCW, fuck that, Clone Wars 03 Volume 2 watch party. And if you haven't watched the first one with us, I have the link. You can go back and watch it on your own, and leave comments in that. So there's that. So stay tuned for that. I'm rather excited about that. Let me finish up this little tangerine orange thingy. Okay. All right. So we're getting back on track. Thank you, Soul. Korr might be a Corellian. Little is known about his past and family. Correct. And that's what I've noticed, is that there's no history given about his past, his family, none of that. And kind of a Corellian trait, right? So we have all those little scenarios that make you ponder, could he been a Corellian? And I think so. I mean, Corellia is known for their starships, their fleets and stuff that they build. And this even goes all the way into the Old Republic. So you would have to think that there's a lot of skilled pilots that are Corellian. And you see that in the history of Star Wars. Again, Star Wars is one continuity. It's not a parallel. It's a single history. And I think people who, anti-EU people who discredit and use a parallel universe really discredits the purpose of why Star Wars was made as a single history. And I think it's like very dishonest of them to do that. And they're not realizing that this also makes Star Wars look unstructured. Like they're fighting for Star Wars to be unstructured. And that's a very odd take to go about it. All right, so OG Star Wars. I've only scratched the surface of the old EU, but it's yeah, you could say old, but it's the EU. But I've enjoyed what I've read and heard about so far. One book that helped me learn more about it was DK's Unlimited Visual Guide. There you go. I haven't DK's Unlimited. Yeah. So there you go. And let's see here. Zaggerot 315, what's up? Good morning, Alora, and good morning, chat. And thank you for spelling my name right. Awesome. Okay. All right. Let's get back into this. All right. So he had exceptional piloting skills and with the blaster and unarmed combat. Kind of tells you why he is part of the Havoc squad, right? He was very skilled in fighting and all that. Course time was short in the military due to his wife's death. Excuse me, and I'm going to choke on a freaking orange. Don't eat and talk at the same time. You know, they say it's bad manners, but there's a reason why too. You might choke and die. All right. I hope I'm entertaining you guys. And I'm glad I'm not on camera doing this because that would have been an awful take. Awful face. So he left. So after his wife's death, he left to care for his crippled daughter. So his wife died and his daughter lost, you know, her legs. And so he left to go take care of her. And what's sad about that in a sense is that he didn't have no means of making an income and living for him and his daughter. So that's when he became a part of the exchange and became a smuggler, which is kind of rocky for him. Kind of reminds me of Han Solo, where he can't deliver goods and he owes a lot too. This has a lot of Han Solo-esque, you know, kind of tale here in a sense, other than, you know, some of the events are different, like, you know, having a daughter, a wife, the daughter losing her legs and stuff like that. But like the piloting, the blaster skills, all of that reminds me of Corellian, which Han was Corellian. And then also owing the exchange and stuff a lot of money and trying to get himself out of that debt is another, you know, inkling or whisper, or maybe it's poetry, it rhymes, which I'm not going to even call it that. I'm just saying that kind of sarcastically to Han Solo. You know, so there we have that. So Han Solo maybe has been one of the main character, since he's the movie character, to set up what smugglers can, you know, some smuggler traits are, I guess. I don't know. So that's something to ponder right there. Something to ponder. I'm going to see what you guys have to say here. Nothing much going on. Okay. All right. You guys are just communicating with each other. And Taylor Swifty, hello. How are you doing, Matt G? What's up? Thank you for dropping in and listening. We have 17 beautiful souls here. Thank you so much. And so he basically undertook weapon running missions in the Outer Rim. So imagine that, running, you know, weapons and stuff, because of course there's a battle going on. There's the Cold War. He had to, you know, discharge from it to take care of his daughter. And then as he became a part of the exchange, his sister-in-law, the aunt, went ahead and cared for his daughter, and he's trying to raise money to get her a hollow, one of those hollow lift chairs or whatever it's called, so that she can be mobile, kind of like what we see with Lars in Attack of the Clone. So, you know, you have that a little bit of continuity, you know, going on there. So, and then he had a surprising reunion back with Aaron Lanier, and on Volta just prior to his departure, so prior to leaving and stuff. And upon learning the Sith attacked the death and the death of her master Ven Zalo, requested that Korr transport her to Coruscant. So basically, he took her back to Coruscant, and they developed a love interest, I guess you could say, or like they had an attraction towards each other. So this is where you get like, I wonder if Zeerd Korr is really, is a descendant from him. And so there's a possibilities of this setup. Like I said, there's some possibilities, but it's only in Kemp's mind. It's never got a chance to become a part of the Star Wars history, the Star Wars canon yet. And then the buyout happened, and so we'll never know. So there's that. So I thought that was interesting about, interesting thing to share here. Let's see here. See what you guys have to say, if there's anything else. Yeah, Kleeglar's, the hover chair. Yeah. I was like, what the hell's the name of that thing? And what was his name again? So Lars, but yeah. OG Stars, there's a video from Retro Blasting where he basically blames George for how bad the Obi-Wan show is. What? George has nothing to do with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, mainly because George making Leia Luke's sister in the first place. That setup, you know what was done better? The Last of the Jedi. So if you're privy to the Kenobi novel, that happens right after the movie ends. He leaves with the kids, not with the kids, but with Luke, delivers him. Then we get his story unfolding, him dealing with some push and pull of how he felt about all the events and all the drama and all this and trauma and all of this. We get that story, and he's trying to learn not to be a Jedi invisible sight, I guess you can say. Trying not to respond as a Jedi because he has to hide in plain sight. And, and then, a year after, that's when the Last of the Jedi is said to happen. He goes on a mission. He gets a Force vision, and on top of that, people talking. So all the stuff, the will of the Force is happening, and he needs to go and help out his friend's old apprentice, Farron Olin, and Ferris Olin, sorry, and but that mission ends up being to protect Luke and Leia and their birth and Padme, basically, even though she's dead, and destroying any other evidence that would happen to remain on Polis Massa. So that was a mission to protect Luke, Leia, and the direction that they decided to take, with preserving or saving the twins and hiding them and all that. Now, that's a good story. And being Luke's sister does not make for a bad story. The decisions on the direction of where Obi-Wan Kenobi's show was taken, the decisions for that show, is the bad story. Has nothing to do with George. Nothing, not a damn thing whatsoever. This is just proof that they're not keeping continuity with George. It's not the other way around. And we'll get into that later on when we talk about that website, when we go through that website. Let's see here. That sounds cool. I have to read those novels soon. Yeah. So, and it's only the first two novels are based on that. And then the rest of them, I think there's like 6 of them or 9 of them. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I have them behind me on my bookshelf. It goes into more of like storyline in the dark times between the OT and the PT. So very fun read there, I would say. And they're young readers, or young adult novels. So they're not, each one is not that long to read, but it is heavy with lore. It's fun to read, all of that. Cheers to you, my friend. And then wasn't the Last Jedi published in 2014? The Last Jedi, that novel, it's published, I wouldn't say 2014. You might be right. I don't have the dates in front of me. In fact, I have hold on. I don't know. It's not going to be in the readers, essential readers companion, because the Kenobi novel's not even. But those books that were being written and developed during the buyout, most of them were stayed within the original continuity, the original canon, the canon. And then only a couple were brought into the Disney lore, and that's one of them is Tarkin. So because they made that, and another one is Heir to the Jedi. So those two novels had to be rewritten in a sense, restructured to fit their vision of which way they want to go with the lore. So a little bit of history on that. All right, so let's get back into this here. So he helped his Jedi friend on the mission on Coruscant, and I don't want to give too much. I want to give his history, but I don't want to give too much to where it's going to tell a lot about the books and stuff. But you know, they Malgus is involved here, all of that. So having lost, so you know, and he's on these missions here. He like I said, he owes the exchange a lot of money. He's trying to make money for his daughter to give her a hover chair, you know, be a good dad, all of this stuff. So having lost a cargo in ink spice. So basically I forgot to note, sorry, I have it written down here. I forgot to note that he's smuggling spice. So basically he's smuggling spice. Coruscant under Malgus and the Sith rule is blockaded, shut down. The security, you can't go through. You have to go through security, because if you know Coruscant, they have shields and they have security points you have to go through. Kind of like what you've seen on Scarif in Rogue One. Yes, I know about that show. So similar to that, they also control the weather and stuff. If you haven't read the X-Wing novels, you'll find out that Coruscant is very man-controlled, human-controlled. Even the environment, even the weather, all of that. So they are stopped from going in because of the checkpoints. However, he does make it through and stuff. So there's that. Kind of like reminds me again of Han Solo. But he lost his cargo of ink spice, or I'm just going to call it spice, and so he devoted himself to get it back to Volta and retrieve his daughter. Then moving to Dantooine to escape the exchange and start a new life. So because he owes a lot and he wasn't able to pay off his debt, even with the promise of, like, if I can get through the blockade, or not the blockade, the security point on Coruscant and deliver the spice, you know, can you dissolve me of all these charges of me owing? You know, he had these deals set. He couldn't honor that. So he was going to run away. Seek a new path. And then so he's making his way back to the spaceport, and he had Linner with her, the Jedi, and he had her with him, and they went to the Jedi Temple first to ensure of what intentions were along his journey and subsequent adventures into the ruined Jedi Temple. It's like Soul Assassin or anybody, how many times has that temple been decimated or ruined in Star Wars history? I know this is like thousands and thousands of years pre, you know, like PT. But how many times has the temple been destroyed? I mean, is it 3 or 4 times already? Like, you know, because we have Old Republic, maybe twice there. Then we have PT era. Then you have Legacy comics. So 4. Twice in the Old Republic, I think. I'm not sure. I have to go back. So if you could tell me, those Old Republic specialists. The PT era, and then Legacy. Oh, no. The Vong, too. So 5 times, I believe. Because the Vong War, twice in the PT, or the Old Republic. Sith, PT, and Vong, and Legacy. 4 times, maybe 5, if it's twice in the Old Republic. Because it also, no, that was Ossus, right? We're talking about Coruscant, because Coruscant, all right, so 3, 4 times. Okay, because I'm thinking of Ossus. Or I'm thinking like the Legacy one was on Coruscant, and it's not. It was on Ossus when that one was decimated. All right, so we're talking about location, not temples in itself. All right. So if we're talking about the main temples in itself, it's about 5 times that, the Jedi's temples have been destroyed, maybe more. So yeah. So there we go. So 3 to 4 times Coruscant Temple, maybe just 3. Like I said, those who are Old Republic specialists may know more, like how many times than I do, than I do. And like I said, that's my weak point there. Everybody has their weak point in what they know and they don't know. And, I admit to that. I was talking with Matt Wilkins, and he said his weak point is the games. And and I think that's where my weak point is with the Old Republic, because I haven't really fully played the games. I've read, but haven't fully read, so there we go. All right. So this character, I highly recommend delving more into, reading the books. So yeah. He even kisses his Aaron and stuff like that. And there's so much going on here. I need to do something on I need to do some Jedi history on Old Republic. Yeah. And so in the end, I just had to pause there and think about it. So in the end, going through the conflict and fighting with Malgus and stuff and escaping, so it's funny how smugglers seem to get involved in these conflicts with Sith and stuff. And you have this repeated history of them doing so in one way, shape, or form, whether they want to or not. And it's just probably just the structure of the galaxy and the time frame and stuff like that, because smugglers are valuable to helping, transport weapons, like in his case, and spice, like in his case, and stuff. And then a lot of them, not all of them, but there are some that have a heart of gold, wears a heart on the sleeves, and ends up getting involved with someone that basically is involved with the greater good of the galaxy as well. And again, Aaron, basically the Jedi Knight that he got involved with, who said that she would return to him on Tatooine and stay on, or Dantooine, not Tatooine. And so, him and his daughter welcomed her greatly. So there's that hint again, going back to, is Zeerd Korr his descendant? We will never know. There's that possibility. It's slim, but there's that possibility, but we'll never know now. So we can only do these what if pieces, just like with Ben's descendant, Ben Skywalker's descendant, and Jaina Solo Fell's descendants and stuff like that, and Jason's descendants. We can only have those what ifs because we're not going to get those the stories anymore. So this goes in, so his story kind of goes into the structure of like, oh, what are smugglers? And there's these similarities, because when we start delving into some of these smugglers history, we do see similarities, but we also see the differences, because they have to have different personalities. There's different type of events because they're in different time frames of history in Star Wars. So it's enjoyable to learn about these guys. And then you have smugglers like George Cardass, which is not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. I want to touch bases on George Cardass. Yeah, so we'll get into that, because he is something that's very interesting, that did set up Talon Karrde's legacy as the top smuggler of his time. And so I think that's very important. So let's go ahead. It's already up at the top of the hour. We're not going to get into Cringe Factor just yet. We're going to go ahead and talk about that website I wanted to get into. Aaron got Malgus to become a full Sith, and in his wife. Very tragic. Yes. And that's another story too. It's like, there's so much depth into this. It's like, I don't want to talk about everything, because I want you guys to read and get into these books and stuff. That's the purpose of talking about the lore and these characters and all that, is to get you excited to read, get you excited to explore the history of Star Wars. We'll say that continuity is the history of Star Wars, because it's all one single history. And we have, that's what Star Wars had going for it during the time of George Lucas era. So I think this is a great segue to get into what we're going to talk about here. Let me see, make sure I didn't close the wrong. I think I closed the wrong one and closed out my Screen Rant one. Well, forget that. Let me go ahead and pull that Screen Rant tab back up and find that article here. So let me know let me know what you think about smugglers. What are your thoughts on smugglers, and who is your favorite? And I've known I asked this before, but who is your favorite smuggler? Who is your favorite smuggler? Come on, let me see here. Where's the Mr. Palpatine? Let's see. Hayden Christian may have. Nope, I don't want that one. Let's see here. Scroll. So who is your favorite smuggler and why? And do you see parallels to that smuggler you like to Han Solo? I just want to comprise a little bit of notes on that. Let's see here. And let me know. No, I'm going to have to pull it up on history. This sucks. They added some new stories, and I just don't want to go through here and look at this. Okay, history. Screen Rant. There we go. All right. I love it when, you have the history panel to look at and pull up those articles here. So let me know. Favorite smuggler character, and do you see parallels to that? Let's see here. Stupid Jedi Temple, stop being rebuilt. All these stories sound more interesting and thought-provoking over Andor. Andor, I think, is over fucking rated because people are hurting for Star Wars, like a good Star Wars story, that they think this is it, and no, it's not. They are willing to oversee continuity errors and stuff like that, and the boring plot lines and story, just to have something good. And I think that's kind of ridiculous. I'm so tired of hearing people praise the pile of junk, and I agree. Smugglers are the Republic's ace card. Laugh out loud. Yeah, you got a point there. Aaron got Malgus. Yeah, I remember that. You said that, and I pulled that up. I love Old Republic books because all, for the most part, have very non-traditional endings to their stories, part of what makes them so great. And let's see here. Fatal Line sucks, but still falls in this category. Yeah, like I said, we're all going to have stories that we don't agree on or like. Han Solo and Lando are my favorites, but I've been getting more into Kyle Katarn and Dash Rendar. Good. Explore these characters. Andor is a very speciest. Too many humans, not diverse. Yeah, that's another thing too. And people will gladly try to defend that as well. My favorite smuggler, too many good characters, but yeah, they mostly start out the same way, for the money, loner, and quick with the blaster. Yes, true that. True that. All right, so let's get into the story. Let me pull it up here. Present. Now, this right here is continuity talk, and this is all about like evidence that the EU is not canon and George didn't care for it. And this is by David Talk Star Wars. So let me share screen here. And I wanted to go through this with you guys because I want to show how horribly contrived this research is, dishonest as well. And just another dude. So he says, just another dude who writes Star Wars essays in my free time. And the thing is, if he writes Star Wars essays, he's failing to do his fucking research here. And he says, I collected 773 George Lucas quotes to this day, and 936 are from the Star Wars creators and authors, executives. So basically, he says he does all the research, but then when it comes to this kind of argument, he doesn't use that. So I think this is very dishonest journaling, opinion website. So we'll get into this. An argument I hear from time to time is the following. I don't care that this novel is considered legends. It was canon when George Lucas, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it in that context. George Lucas was in charge of Lucasfilm. It's still canon to me now. Whatever George says is what counts. I don't care what Disney says. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone write in this kind of context here. You let me know if you've ever written something like this in the chat. Putting the expanded universe Star Wars and George Lucas Star Wars in the same basket, and that's inaccurate. So he says, so we'll get into that. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Let's see here. David Talk Star Wars is a Disney shill, correct? And I hope that, and I'm going to share this with Melvin. So I hope that this gets to him if it hasn't already. I know he's doing the Sparrow Files, and I can't wait for the next episode. And there's some of the things that he presented. I did see some of that being talked about or alluded to and stuff like on his Instagram and stuff like that. So good reporting. All right, let's get back to that. Okay. So without further ado, let's explore George Lucas's involvement in the expanded universe. So we know that authors and even this book here and many other publications of, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on my screen. Let me move myself down to the corner there so you can see me. Put myself in the corner. All right. So this, among other published content, shares George Lucas's involvement, and he fails to go and provide that evidence. Let's see here. All right. So early years of the EU, and I know that, and I didn't pull up that that video that Tim did, but in a video, and I can't remember the name of it. It's not the canon video that he created. He shares that it was early involved, like George Lucas talking about early involvement in the EU and being a part of it. And this is early. This is like 1978, I believe. And also the EU being his one of his babies on wanting to share the story of Star Wars. So early years in the EU, when the first bit of the EU content came out in the form of the novel Splinters of the Mind's Eye, you can actually, it was the comic that came out first, not Splinter of the Mind Eye. And then if you want to say, well, the first novel, which the EU is contrived of novels, it could be Star Wars, The Adventures of Luke Skywalker. So there you go. So this is where, because like the first comic was published like a month before Star Wars came out in the theaters. Lucas was too busy working on the films, so Alan Dean Foster wrote it by himself, which explains why Luke and Leia's relationship plays out romantically. Yeah, he was actually, when that story was written, let me see. Let me go ahead and pull it up here in the book here, because there's something that I want to point out. Okay, Last of the Jedi. We're just about there. Splinters of the Mind Eye. Let's find it here. Galactic Civil War. We are coming to it. There's so much that has been published here. It is crazy. The journals, the Death Star. Man, I should have just went to the index and just pulled up the page number. And here I'm like just running through it real quick. Okay, galaxies. Okay, Splinters of the Mind's Eye. Let's see here. As an early expanded universe work, the novel does exhibit some dated inconsistencies in characterization and continuity. Luke is depicted as far more war-weary and cynical than he's ever been, and feeling towards Leia beyond brotherly affection. So basically, George has not decided at this point on if Luke and Leia are brother and sister. So that is a moot point that he's making here. Darth Vader's villainy is far more arc and snarl, and his lightsaber duel with Luke doesn't match the level of skills displayed on Empire Strikes Back. Because the history, and we'll get into this. The history of Splinters of the Mind's Eye was that it's a novel that was written and came out. Where's the published date here? April 1978, before Empire Strikes Back came out. Okay, so, but the purpose of Splinters of the Mind's Eye was to give a sequel novel if Star Wars was not successful. And he's failing to share this within this website, this content here that he did. He's failing to give that context of why Splinters of the Mind's Eye was written. And then because Star Wars was a hit, George is like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do my movie. Now, he gave full faith into Ellen Dean Foster into writing this story and making it a type of story that can easily be published or made into a low production film. And George liked the story as well. And let me see here. And there was also a 4-part comic adaptation to it as well. And let me see. Let me go back to this here. Yeah, so, according to Star Wars producer Gary Kurtz, the novel took into account production budget being set in filmable locations, jungle, underground caverns, and avoiding costly visual effects sequences like space battles. Even Han Solo's notable absence from the story is the result of the production reality. Harrison Ford was not contracted to appear in any Star Wars sequels at the time. So all of this context is failed to be mentioned in this guy's, evidence, or I'm just saying this like quote unquote evidence here. Let me see what you guys have to say. And I forget I'm on camera, so you're looking at me look at that stuff. The novelizations of The New Hope came out in November 1976. So right out of the bat, this article gets things wrong. Correct, and that's the problem here is that he says, he gathers up all this evidence and stuff and what authors say, but then there's evidence that he doesn't fully do his research. Leia wasn't his sister originally. Lucas said that was a change made later because he didn't think he had time to set up her properly, so he opted for Leia. Also, too, he had to resolve this love triangle. Which way did he need to take Luke versus Han? So that's another thing that he talked about. There's a lot of Disney shills in the toy collection community. They love their Black Series, though I've been trying to stop purchasing. Yeah. Let's see here. Splinters of the Mind Eye audiobook. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's go back here and start. Whoops, wrong one. All right. So after the movies came out, when new material was going to be created, George Lucas licensing other authors and other authors that the prequel era was off limits to write about. He can't even do proper sentences because he might tell the story one day. There's a specific reason, and this alone is going to debunk all of what he's saying down below. There's a specific reason why he said the prequel era was off limits. Because the EU was canon, and he wanted to be the first one to tell the story. If the EU wasn't canon and it was a parallel universe, that wouldn't have mattered whatsoever. See, and I don't think this person realized that that's the case here. Beyond that, they could go to town and write sequels. For instance, after all, part of the Star Wars was created was to let people's imagination run wild, and George was happy to let other artists play in the sandbox. Yes, he allowed other authors to come in and play in quote unquote his sandbox, that little generic term that's been used a lot in Star Wars. However, there was rules they had to abide by. They had to abide by George's vision, his guidelines, what he expected to be told in a sense, because there's stories that weren't published whatsoever. And one is that Heart of the Jedi, because it didn't fit in with what George seen for Star Wars. And I think he fails, and people like this fail to understand that stories were vetoed because it didn't fit in the vision of Star Wars as a whole saga. All right. And then so he shares this little bit about, and this is the back of one of the Heir to the Empire, basically, yeah, this is in the back of the Heir to the Empire. This is all the other, this and all other products that take place after the events depicted in Return of the Jedi are the author's vision of what may have happened. The true fate of the hero and villains of the Star Wars universe remains the exclusive province of George Lucas and Lucasfilm Limited. So basically, this doesn't say it was not canon, because the story was approved based upon George Lucas and Lucasfilm Limited's visions of Star Wars. And then it has the first printing in July 1992. So again, this isn't proof, because when you flip the book, it says the saga continues. And there has been evidence of George saying, and the recent one, and we're going to appeal to authority just like this person is. In 2015 at the Tribeca, and I'm going to share that with you guys, at the Tribeca, he basically talks about the books being a part of the saga, telling about the father, the children, and the grandchildren, and that's even in the novels. And then there's a 1994 publication in Star Wars Insider 23 regarding how the EU is official a part of the saga. So there's that disclaimer as well, because people wanted to know if that's the case. And he fails to provide that here. So let me go ahead and pull up some of that information. Can you imagine? Let me see. Can you imagine what story ideas got vetoed by George Lucas? I know, and that's the thing. So let me go ahead and take this down here and pull up a couple of things here that I want to share. And it's going to be in my own DMs here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing and go to that first, and so that you guys are not seeing some of my business. Let's see here. Making sure that I took it off screen. Yeah, I sure did. All right. Star Wars. Where is it at? Oh, here we go. Messages. I need a bigger screen. I don't need the side screen. There we go. Bear with me, you guys. I do have this all lined up. I just need to get to the proper box. The proper box. All right. Let me see here. So, okay. All right. So let me go ahead and share the screen, and you guys keep chatting in the chat here. I wish there was an easier way. I mean, I could have did a PowerPoint. I've done PowerPoints before. You guys know me. You guys know me. So first of all, here's the article from the Star Wars Insider. And it talks about like how George created the universe of Star Wars, all of that, in kind of like a poetic way here. And in a mythical way, like how they tell about Jesus or God or whatever. And on the sixth day, he created the Force, a powerful power distinguishing good from evil, light from darkness. Then he surveyed his galaxy and declared it Star Wars. But George Lucas didn't rest on the seventh day. Instead, he continued to grow the galaxy and imbued his figurative progeny, LucasArts and Lucasfilm Licensing, with the power to expand on Star Wars universe beyond the perimeter of the initial movie trilogy. And I got it out of I got them out of order here. The gatekeeper. So who is the guardian of the intergalactic pearly gates? Our St. Peter is Lucasfilm Licensing Vice President Howard Rothman. Several years ago, we made the decision with George to open up the Star Wars universe beyond the scope of the first trilogy and and independent of whatever the next trilogy would hold, Rothman says. George proving us with some general guidance about what we could and couldn't do. For instance, we couldn't do stories in the time period of a couple of generations before the Star Wars, because that's when he planned to focus the next trilogy. However, we could extend the fantasy after Return of the Jedi. And there's evidence that George said that he had no more stories to tell after Return of the Jedi, that the novels are the sequels to the movies. And Lucasfilm licensing serves two functions that make sure all the new material is consistent with the films, consistent in its portrayal of the rebels and the Empire's conflicts, consistent in how it introduces characters of different races and cultures, and even consistent in design direction. Additionally, licensing makes sure the new material from different sources is consistent. Our aim is, and the different sources is basically like the novels, the games, or whatever. Our aim is to have a lot of cross-fertilization between the mediums. Mediums meaning that Star Wars is a multimedia franchise. This validates the universe for fans. Continued Rothman, we're building the integrated team that's producing product in the integrated universe. The result is a universe so carefully and explicitly evolved that it began to parallel our own Milky Way in its diversity, logic, and believability. So there you go. We have that. And I have all kinds of things here. So basically, we have everything except those items marked with Infinity logo is considered canon, and that's 2003. And this is by Sue Rustoni. Lucasfilm canon refers to anything that produced by any of the Lucas companies, whether it be the movies, books, games, or internet. So this is the key word here. Movie canon is only what you see and hear in the Star Wars films, Leland says, and this is 2003. And let's go here. That's about midichlorians. George's expanded universe. So this goes into George, his idea of, and this is back in 1977, 78. Star Wars was a huge hit. Lucas had retired. I don't know why they said he had retired, but the ancillary, he's talking about, this was published, I think 2019 or something, but this is talking about 1978-ish. Alan Dean Foster had ghostwritten the novelization and was working on a sequel. Marvel was churning out monthly comic books, and numerous merchandising deals were being negotiated, all of which meant that lots of people needed to know more about the cinematic wonderkind. Lucas had plenty of notes for his drafts, but these were words in progress. So in order to get everyone on the same page, he decided to sit down with Carol Titleman and record his knowledge of the world he had created. The communication technique he hit upon was similar to the role-playing. He assumed a character and responded to the questions about his or her background, personality, home planet, and so on. Lucas, so basically this is Lucas expanding on his universe. The expanding universe basically is expanding on his universe. And that's why he recommended the role-playing games, West End games, to many of the authors in the early years to create Star Wars, because it had vital information on explaining the characters and breaking down ships, breaking down scenarios, all of that. Let me see what you guys are saying here. And I do have a couple super chats here. Let me get to them, and member chats. Brannon says, I've been thinking about this a lot today. Is it possible to rewrite the Mortis arc to fit with the EU? Because if so, I have an idea for a project. Well, they were doing that in Fate of the Jedi. And then just popping in to say hi and propose an idea. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for the $5 super chat. So I know you guys have a lot to say in here. Let's see here. Can you all imagine what kind of... Oh, I read that already. So let's see here. And then I believe that this section is from J.W. Renser's book. Yes, In the Making of Empire Strikes Back. Yes, it is. So I got the published date wrong. I'm sorry. Because if so, then we can have it linked to Abeloth without retconning Fate of the Jedi. All right, so let's see here. Let's go back to what I'm sharing here first, and we'll go back to that article here. And we're going to get into how he's using George never considered Luke being married part of his canon, blah, 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 and he never approved it. Mind you, we're getting into this area of stories were vetoed because it didn't fit George's vision. If it didn't fit George's vision, it was gone. But would it have really mattered then? Really? If it wasn't canon? If it was a parallel universe and they can tell whatever stories they wanted? See the conflict that's going on here that this person's not failing to understand? It's canon. It has rules to follow by. Stories were vetoed. Stories were approved. And they did happen. And here's one proof here. I never talked to him, so I don't know. And this is about George. What I can say is that George did approve Mara and Luke marrying. This I have from Tim. And my experience, and I don't know what he meant. I didn't talk to him, so I don't know what that context is about. So that's what's being missing. That's what's missing. I'm being honest. That's what's missing. He doesn't know, we don't know what he's talked, what he never talked to him about. And my experience that if anything was going to happen with any of his characters, George signed off. So basically, George had precedence over what direction their characters, like the characters he created, went. And if he did not want Luke married, it would not have happened in the EU. And that's what people are failing to understand. For example, Vector Prime, they wanted to kill off Luke because that would have been an exciting story arc. Killing off a main character, like the main character that kicked off Star Wars, the main character. George said no. And offered up, mind you, Han or Leia. And then the authors were like, no, I don't think so, because fans are not going to like that either. So they offered up, Chewie was offered up, and then so he ended up being the one that was, that went to his death in Vector Prime. And very courageous story, by the way. So my point is, if it wasn't canon, then none of that would have mattered. If Luke died, that wouldn't have mattered. Right? So that's a context that people are failing to realize here. And let me see here. What else do I have? I put a lot up here. Let's go ahead and go back to the other piece of information, let's go back to that website. So wrong thing here. Let's go back to that website. So let's switch gears here again. And let's see here. Because if so, then we can, okay, I read that one already. Let me go ahead. Switch. I wish I can share them both at the same time, but I can't. I wish StreamYards will allow us to share two, but that's okay. So let's go back. And mind you, there's a lot of quotes that were cherry picked and context taken out of them to make it look like this is exactly what George said and whatever. And there's a lot of suggestive things like, oh, well, George would never have written it that way. Well, that doesn't mean that doesn't prove it wasn't canon. No author, no writer of a story is going to write the exact same thing. However, George did set the perimeters and his goals, his rules, all of that on what the authors could write. And they knew of his vision. But they did have creative freedom, but not that much freedom, because they had to adhere to the guidelines and rules set by George that was implemented by the people he hired to keep track of continuity. So Thrawn books, Dark Empire, all the material was explicitly just Tom Veitch and Timothy Zahn and whoever else else's creation, not George's, who was described by Lucas Licensing Lucy Autry Wilson as not very involved. So her, when she came out with this interview in 2019 or 2022. So that was just recently because I did cover this. I did talk about this. I think we talked about this. I talked about this with Tim on the spacing or something like that. Is that why after all these years is she coming out and saying this when she could have said that from the start? And she did not say it from the start. And I think this is very dishonest and very suspicious. And I think people need to be suspicious of these people coming out and saying stuff years after, like Marsha did in that series that we talked about on the spacing as well. And so be very suspicious of these people coming out years and years later, countering what was established that came before. That came before. And the most he did was answer okay, not okay. No, that was not the most he did. And I do have proof on that. Talon Hand's backstory between the prequels and episode 4, okay. Having someone wear Vader's suit after his death, not okay. The Empire returning to the in clone body, okay. And there's times where and he also provides information about, Lucas never had the time or never read the stories. That doesn't mean, or the EU, that doesn't mean that it wasn't canon. That just means that he didn't have the time to read all the stories. However, he had people in charge to keep continuity and stuff. And it was confirmed by Sue and Filoni and other people that George read the comics. So there we have that. And then let me go ahead and pull up the other screen now. Let me hold on. My daughter's trying to call me. She knows I have CAF chat right now. Darn her. So let me see her. All right. So let's get into this here. Let me change screens again or share screens again. So stop sharing this. And let's go back to the other one I was sharing because I want to pull up 2 pieces of evidence here that counters him. And this is not just the only, so don't get that wrong. This is just a couple out of many that was told. Like here's this, from the passage of Labyrinth of Evil. Heartfelt thanks to Shelley Shapiro, Sue Rustoni, and Howard Rothman for remaining in my corner throughout the project, and to George Lucas for responding to my inquiries. So let's see here. Let's scroll down. Oh, here's this one. Let's go ahead and play this one here. Let's stop it though. This is about him talking about the books being a part of the saga.
They've, the original saga was about the father, the children, and the grandchildren. And I mean, that's not a secret to anybody. It's even in the novels and everything. But so
hopefully you guys heard that. Let me know if you heard that. Orgy Stars, my mother gave me the same advice. Be wary of stuff being said years after the fact. Correct. And that's what you got to do is you got to throw out that caution, that bit of caution about that. A lot of things could have been said years ago when Lucas was around. Right. And it wasn't the correction. There was corrections to what Lucas said about parallel universe and all of that. And about the EU not being canon. It was all canon. There was that correction. There were those corrections here. So let me go back here. So there's that. And then thank you to Scram here. And I think I listened to this interview since then. Very good interview.
Did you get a preview of the film or something? Yeah, I was curious. What kind of material did Lucasfilm provide you to give you an ability to write that? Did you get a preview of the film or something?
I had I had the script for the film, and I also had the ear of George Lucas on that one. So anytime that I had a question about a character or I needed permission to take the story in a certain direction, I'd have that input from him.
Because you had an interesting effect there because you introduced some fans, myself included, into characters like General Grievous and much of the scope of the Clone Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, there was at that time there was no background for Grievous. So
all right. So if George wasn't involved, then he wouldn't be open to take questions, talk about the direction of the story. And so so there's that right there. So let me go ahead and switch articles here. I don't want to go too deep into this article, but I do want to point out some bits and pieces of this article here. Are this contrived bits of pieces of untrustworthy quotes and stuff that was cherry picked. Let's see here. According to Brian J. Jones, author of a live George Lucas biography in 1995, George convened a Star Wars summit wherein he gathered licensees and international agents to Skywalker Ranch in reference the need for him to maintain quality control, especially in the areas of publishing where some characters such as Luke Skywalker, who'd been given a love interest in a fiery smuggler named Mara Jade, were living lives far beyond the ones he had written in the original trilogy. Of course, because their lives are not going to be the same. So what he's saying here is that George basically hired people to keep continuity, basically, in shorts, to keep everything consistent. He approved of Mara Jade. Like I said, if he didn't want it to happen, it would not have happened. I'm not going to go through all of these. I will eventually go through all these and provide, information to correct some of this stuff here. And so during the prequels, we get into that. This video is not even playable. I don't know what happened with it or what's the problem. But he gets into the prequels here, and it gets into a lot more of like right here. This is very contrived here, very dishonest here about the Force here and stuff. Because here the Force is described as a mysterious energy field created by life form. That's just what the Force is as in general. And it gives the Sith and Jedi their abilities altogether. Well, this right here is a vague abilities. What abilities? Well, we know there's mind tricks. We know there's telekinesis. There's other different abilities. And then he tries to say it contradicts this and it's not consistent. The Force gives you superpowers, which is not true because the Force is not necessarily superpowers. And George even specifically said that this is not about superheroes or superpowers. You can open wormholes or drain a planet or punch a droid to pieces. Disney, or move species or spaceships with your mind, crush it. So there's a lot of this that he's saying right here. Some of these are abilities. Some of these are just game mechanics that George approved of because he wanted the players to have fun. So here we go. And other stuff like Mace having a blue lightsaber for a period because who the hell knew purple would be an option because George didn't even know. And then there's a backstory to that, and it's all canon. Are some Jedi having red lightsabers? Yeah, because that red is not. The Sith chose red to distinguish them from the Jedi. Red does not mean you're a Sith. So there's that. And then when that's the feat you can only achieve by being selfless. No, the color of your lightsaber is not if you're selfish or you're selfless. That's not what the color indicates whatsoever. So this person does not understand what lightsabers are about. And also why you get conflicting definitions of what the Jedi call attachment are conflicting narratives try to reframe midichlorians as cold and internally flawed ways of seeing the Force. The midichlorians basically is a breakdown of what George was seeing in the visions of the Wills. So if there was any type of sequel trilogy, it would have been the Wills movie that George wanted to do. Midichlorians, basically the amount of midichlorians one has in their genetics will determine if they're Force sensitive or not. And if they can train and use the Force or not, that's it. So there's, and that's from George, and the EU expanded on it once it came out. So there's no contradiction in that. That's not proof that the EU was not canon. And so we have that. And then later, after the prequels were, and a lot of this is like, oh, well, George said I wouldn't write like this, or I wouldn't have done it this way. That doesn't prove that the EU wasn't canon. It's just sharing that, again, that, all writers are going to write something slightly different. And it's proof. We all have our favorite authors. We all know the tone of the authors and all that. So, and let's see here. And then after the prequels were over and done with, Lucas created the Clone Wars with Dave Filoni. At first, he just suggested a few storylines, but he quickly got very involved. No, he was not very involved with it, because he even said that he stepped back, and Filoni confirmed that he stepped back and left Filoni to his own device. And then also Leland Chi then was starting to correct and made comments about correcting some storylines and some contradictions and stuff like that with the EU. So if the EU was not canon, then the EU would have corrected some contradictions that the Clone Wars did. Dave Filoni is a massive Star Wars fan. That is laughable, and an avid EU reader. Bullshit. He doesn't even know like characters and stuff like that. Like there's evidence that fans have proved him wrong, and he got mad. Proved him wrong about a character at a convention, and so he got upset about that, and that's when you've seen the switch of him about his direction with the EU and how he liked it to now he doesn't. So from time to time, Filoni would bring up EU material for Lucas to consider during the story's conferences, and they'd look at it. They look at that what was out there together. So he's being contrived on that. I mean, he's being dishonest or whatever. And this right here, I'm not going to play this. We all know what this is right here. We know that Filoni lies, and we've never heard George say that the EU was not canon. So this right here, we won't get into these. We won't get into these. Are all basically Filoni just repeating himself time and time again, and we know that he does it a lot. Let's see here, and the sequels ignored the EU. So basically, George Lucas said there was never any sequels, and he reiterated that in the interview with James Cameron. And so what he wrote for ST out of ideas and possibilities, like the one that you read in the Star Wars archives, and whatever else he written, he gave to Disney as part of a bargain of selling the company, so that they have material to expand off of and produce right away, because George's concern was giving the fans Star Wars like right away, giving the fans the story right away, that they could start producing right away. However, they did not use anything that George gave them. Now, the one in the Star Wars archives 1 through 3, when you read through George's ideas for that mirrors the EU. And I don't think this person realizes it, but it mirrors the EU on the direction of the New Republic, on Leia being one of the main people to build the New Republic, and Luke, the person who's bringing back the order, the new Jedi Order. So that all mirrors with just the idea of trying to put Maul and Darth Talon in there. That's the only difference. So that's not ignoring the EU. In fact, that shares that he's mirroring what the story was in the EU in a sense. So I suggest people go back and read that and compare and contrast between what they have read in the New Republic era and what Leia was involved with and what Luke was involved with and all that. You will see the parallels there. Exception to the rules. Comics, kinda. Aside from the fact that he grew up reading comics, understand that George Lucas is a visual artist first and foremost. And so this right here is another proof that just because he didn't read the novels, which he did read, like, I remember it being stated, and I have to pull this up again. I had proven this before, and I just don't have it on me right now, is that he read Shadows of the Empire, and it was a big multimedia project that he overseen. And I have that story. I have that source book here with me, and that was excuse me, that's what he's about, and that's what he loves. And that doesn't mean that the EU was not canon. It doesn't mean that Star Wars franchise wasn't a multimedia franchise. So let's go ahead and scroll down here. And it talks about, and right here, let me scroll down here a little bit more. Like I said, we're not going to go through all this. So he gets into the Council Darth Maul game, and whatever. Let's see here. Let's go back here. Red Fly pitched the coming of the H story, where we see Maul be kidnapped and tortured, eventually the dark side. And so this talks about the game, which basically mirrors what he was thinking. George was thinking about the movies. George was involved in this portion here, and they have this bit of cherry picked. You could tell it's cherry picked passage from the interview. A friendly George Lucas entered the room and was eager to hear the pitch from Red Fly's creatives. Before they could finish the spiel, George cut them off, stood up, walked over to the two sideshow collectible statues of Darth Maul and Darth Talon, rotated them and to be facing in the same direction, pushed them together and said they're friends. Well, that kind of goes off of his information and, the Star Wars archives about the possibility of a sequel trilogy. And ad source, he wanted the characters to be friends, to play off of each other. And it's kind of, here's the cherry picked here. And it goes off to here. The problem with this idea that Maul and Talon teaming up for the buddy cop-like experience was that they were separated by over years. And so they leave out information, and I'm going to get to that information with you guys. When this vast time divide was brought up Lucas' attention, he brushed off the notion of it not working and said that it could instead be descendants and the Maul of Clone. So basically, that bits and pieces were not shared here, which is very dishonest. This is very dishonest information. Put the whole context of the quote that you are using, or I'm going to be suspicious of it, and I think you guys should too. So basically, Lucas basically said, let's course correct the continuity. And that's what happened, in short. So there's this right here. And then it also goes into the Sith, him saying that the prequel novelization they were all given a copy of Lucas's screenplay, because the novels have to be based upon the movie, and so it goes into that here, and he's trying to say here, and I wanted to get into the Sith thing here. Where's the Sith here with Veitch? So basically, he's saying that he's saying that the Jedi and the Sith weren't in this big passage here too as well, that the Jedi and Sith never had war with each other and stuff. And that's wrong, because George basically explains that in some evidence here. I'm going to share with you guys here. Let me see here. Let me go back to the stream here and share up that bit of information here to debunk that as well. So this guy uses cherry-picked, quote-unquote, evidence to say that George said there was never war between the Sith. And this conversation I was in a while ago, and this proves them wrong. The Sith are arch enemies of the Jedi. George Lucas explained, and for a long time they ruled the universe. The Sith ruled the universe until the Jedi came along and got rid of them, aka war. They battled them. They got rid of them. The Sith characters in the previous Star Wars films were Darth Vader and the other apprentices. Darth Maul on Episode 1, Count Dooku, and our Darth Tyrannus from Episode 2. And the soon-to-be released Episode 3, the evil Master Sith in all of the films is Darth Sidious, who became Emperor of the universe. So basically, the Jedi got rid of them. They got rid of them ruling thousands of years ago, aka battle, because you just didn't go up and say, oh, by the way, you're not ruling anymore, get out of here. So there was war. So he confirms there was war. And then why do the Sith want revenge? The Sith are the natural enemies of the Jedi, as George Lucas described it. The Sith were once in control of the galaxy 1,000 years in the past. Unfortunately, the Sith hunger for conquest got the better of them, so Many Sith Lords were vying for ultimate control that it led to infighting among their ranks. Such interscene struggles were exploited by the Jedi Knights of that era, meaning that they seen that and they battled them, they got rid of them ruling, and that goes into the rule of two that was developed by Carpathian, which he basically had conversation with Lucas about, I keep on calling him Lucas about the Sith and the rule of two era. So there's that. And then by episode 2, the Sith are ready to reveal themselves. There's no more need for subterfuge, no more need for sulking in the shadows, so basically that's the revenge of the Sith right there. So more evidence to the contrary on him using that bit of evidence saying that Lucas never said that Jedi and the Sith never had war. So there's so much in here that you can go and pull up these bits of information and debunk. And it's funny, George Lucas contradicts himself all the time. And when you get him to talk about the lore, like he did here about the Sith, this shares that he contradicts what he said in the interview. But then you got to also question the interviewees. Are they dishonestly rewriting the interview? And that's the case because, like, even Starlog, Leland Shee had to go in and correct some things. So I'm not going to push on further, I don't think, with this. I just wanted to bring up some information here about how dishonest this website is and how it's being used to be counterproof to that. We're going to get into Cringe Factor, so we're going to go over, but I do need to use the restroom, so I'm going to go ahead and play a commercial here, and I will try to return back as fast as I can. So let me get into a commercial here for you guys, and then we'll get into Cringe Factor.
Prepare yourself for Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. The evil Empire has struck back with a vengeance, and a new villain, the crime lord Shizor, schemes to replace Darth Vader as the Emperor's second-in-command. With Han Solo held frozen in carbonite by bounty hunter Boba Fett, it's the rebellion's darkest hour. Now, join Jedi warrior Luke Skywalker, hard-charging Chewbacca, and go undercover with heroic pilot Dash Rendar and his booming Outrider. But can Han Solo be freed and Shizor be stopped? Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. Look for the authentic figures and vehicles from Kenner.
Well, she's right under my feet. All right. So let's get into our next topic here. Again, I wanted to bring awareness to this. And like I said, I will, I know I'm not on screen here or I have a blackout here, but I will dissect all these these cherry picked interviews. And I've already proved quite a lot wrong just on Twitter in itself. Let me see what you guys have to say here. I know I'm not showing on screen. Let me take this off. Whoo-wee. Oh, my poor bladder. Coffee and water does not mix, you guys. It does not mix. But I want to see what you guys are saying. We're going to run over again, which is fine because we're not going to have a CAF chat next Thursday. So I just wanted to do continuity talk. What do you guys think about this recent little thing of events of this guy taking time to cherry pick all these quotes without even providing context to these quotes and not even realizing, and there's one more thing I wanted to share to one of the quotes that was brought to my attention. So let me go ahead and share one more time. And whoops, wrong button. And I wanted to share this because between me and a few other EU gurus, I guess you can say, if you want to call us that, we've, go back and we question these cherry picked quotes and stuff like that. And then we go and find further context of them, being miswritten, misconstrued in the interview. And there's one here. Well, here's Matthew Stover about him talking about working with George Lucas. So there's this one here, and this one is based upon, there were two worlds here, explains Lucas. This is basically a correction from licensing in itself. There's my world, which is like the movies, and there's this other world that has been created, which I say is parallel universe to the licensing world of books, games, and comic books. They don't intrude with my world, which is a select period of time. Meaning select period of time means that this time frame of where the movies fit in, and the EU fits in between. So basically it's not parallel, it's one timeline, endless history of timeline. So basically it says, and while the rumors persist that an outline for a third trilogy exists, a joke Lucas made in passing to Rolling Stone, which then printed as fact. So George Lucas was joking here. So these article writers take things out of context too as well. And a joke that George, and he has dry humor. George has dry humor if you don't know about that. And they take a joke and make it into something that's factual. The director insists that the only continuation of the saga will be in the form of licensed properties. So basically licensed properties, all licensed properties, that's including the movies, the books, all that is a part of the continuation of the saga. So I just wanted to share that with you because that's an important bit of information that needs to be shared upon. There were so many wars between the Jedi and Sith. How we got the rule of two and all. Yeah, and if there wasn't conflict between the Jedi and the Sith, then there wouldn't be, then we wouldn't have Star Wars, right? There has to be a reason why there's conflict between the two and what's going on, war, what have you. They're rivals, they're arch enemies, all of that. So yeah. OG Star Wars, I had a feeling that George saying that there was nowhere between where it was BS made by Lucas EU hater. Yeah, it's made by EU haters ignoring certain interviews, and that's what they do. They'll cherry pick these quotes and ignore something else George said that basically, debunks or that, I wouldn't say debunks, but share that his focus either has changed over the years or, or what have you. So there we go. Let's see here. And Lucas is known to toy around with fans' interviews, but about what's canon, what's not at times, and not at times. Yeah, George is always BSing and stuff, and that's why his company has to correct his statements. Let's see here. Diddly Squat says, "Whoops, that jumped on me." It's like the video. It's like that video used to back up "everyone is a Jedi" argument, which is a chopped clip with no beginning and no ending, no context. Correct, and that's what they're good at. So OGs away. Has anyone seen Pod Race? Seen a Pod Race? And I'm back. Hello. So let's get into this next bit. It's Cringe Factor. I don't think it's going to be long. Hopefully it's not. But like I said, we're going to go over, and that's fine. So let's go ahead and get into that. So please continue to share your thoughts about this continuity stuff that we've been discussing here. And let's get into the next topic and it's about Palpatine incense. So let's see what's going on with him and what's really being said. And I want your guys' opinion as well.
So uncivilized.
There we go. Screen Rat is always a great provider, and CBR2 is always a great provider for basically all this Cringe Factor bullshit. So here we go. Let's get into this Cringe Factor. Star Wars canon has abandoned. So Disney Star Wars has abandoned George Lucas's Palpatine plans because, you can't have Star Wars canon has abandoned George Lucas's Palpatine's plan because George Lucas created the canon. Disney Star Wars hasn't. So basically Disney Star Wars has abandoned the canon of George Lucas's Palpatine's plans, but the change makes perfect sense. George Lucas' original vision for Palpatine during the original Star Wars trilogy has been altered by Disney, but it makes perfect sense. So what do you think, this can be. I know Soul Assassin knows a little bit about it because I shared it with him. And some of these stuff I don't read through because it's just rehashing what we know about the stories and stuff. But I'm going to go ahead anyways. Disney has been changing Emperor Palpatine's characterization during the original Star Wars trilogy. Though it actually makes perfect sense. I need some water. Though it makes perfect sense, as seen in projects before and during the events of the original trilogy. So this is showing that Disney's changing lore direction to the movies in itself, and I wanted to give you guys information about that. It's well aware that they're using their own material to change their the direction and how people see Star Wars and how the lore is perceived, basically. So George Lucas intended Palpatine to pretend to be a good being, or pretend at. Let me reread that. George Lucas intended Palpatine to pretend at being a benevolent ruler. Benevolent ruler. Very few knew about his Sith Lord status. Well, not knowing doesn't mean that he's this benevolent ruler. It just means that he is hiding his character. But a lot of people realize later, like towards the OT, that he was Sith. So there's that. The truth that Palpatine was actually a Sith was known by very few in the established Star Wars canon. So you mean, George Lucas era. Instead, Star Wars creator George Lucas originally wanted Palpatine to present himself as a benevolent ruler who kept his dark nature hidden, a tactic and false mask worn by many corrupted politician dictators throughout real life history. Palpatine never hid his dark nature, never hid his tactics after the fall of the Republic, after he became the Emperor. He basically implemented a lot of the stuff that we see, like the slavery, the building of super weapons, all of this, the xenophobia, all of it. In the name of the more sincere and safe society, Palpatine makes a promise such as his claim to the Senate will still be intact and the Empire will safeguard all their ideas and beliefs that were under attack by the Separatists and were in danger from the Jedi Rebellion. Now, he's only basing this upon the end of Revenge of the Sith, where Palpatine basically manipulated the Senate and the galaxy into making or having him as their emperor. But as the story progressed towards the OT era, during the dark times, his mask came off. And I think this is what this writer's name is Kevin Erdman. Okay, so we've been through his stories before, and we've already proven that he doesn't understand Star Wars, but we'll get into this some more. In the name, okay. Let me see here. George Lucas, blah, blah, blah. The perfectly seen during Palpatine's address. Okay, so where did I leave off at? Pretend to be blah, 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 blah. Masks worn by. Okay, here we go. This is perfectly seen during Palpatine's address to the Republic Senate in Revenge of the Sith in his declaration to the reform into a new empire. Like I said, but it's only that. In the name of more secure and safe society, Palpatine makes a promise such as his claim that the Senate will, and I already read all that. And according to Palpatine, the Empire was the best way to avoid the roots of corruption that had been plaguing the Republic, corruption he secretly generated. That's why Palpatine's reformation was met with thunderous applause from. So again, he's only going off of just the story at the ending of Revenge of the Sith when we see the fall. Many of those who weren't already under Palpatine's control were undoubtedly drawn in by the new emperor's benevolence and promise of protection for a stronger galactic future. So again, he's only applying that, but he doesn't realize that after that, his mask came off and he started implementing slavery, strongholds of Moff's governing systems and stuff like that. and taking governing control away from those systems even before he dissolved the Senate. So this is what he's failing to realize. The new emperor, let me see here. In the truth, the new empire gave Palpatine everything he had been working towards for decades. Not only did the Sith Lord get his revenge against the Jedi, but the dark side rose to a dominant position of power in the galaxy and once more. And this is the comic that they're referring to here, but I'm not going to go through that. Palpatine continued to play the part of the benevolent ruler into the days of his new empire. Lucas always intended Palpatine to pretend he was an innocent leader. That's fucking bullshit. Surrounded by incompetent, evil lackeys. Palpatine didn't want to be hated. He wanted plausible deniability, maintaining the deception to keep his hold on the galaxy while also ensuring that those under him would be targeted by insurgents first. However, it seems as though this portrayal of Palpatine was subtly changed, and the new Darth Vader comic number 40 by Greg Pak and Raphael Inco is a prime example. The new issue set in the month following Empire Strikes Back, Coruscant. So see, they reference all the way back to the end of Revenge of the Sith, but then say that he's still applying those tactics all through the dark times, which is not true, because Palpatine, had his grip, his evil grip on everything, and made it clear his intentions. Coruscant is under siege by corrupt droids under the control, all their corrupt droids. That's all I hear about this Disney Star Wars stuff, is all these corrupt droids under the control of the sentient A1 known as Scourge. While also being tested by his apprentice Darth Vader, Palpatine orders the activation of Protocol 23 in 2 large sections of the city, completely decimating them and destroying both the corrupted droids and the countless innocent civilians. This truly horrific act is further punctuated by Emperor's claims that all the galaxy's hate for him, including Vader's, only serves to make Palpatine more powerful. So they're saying that in Star Wars, pre-Disney, that Palpatine never committed mass genocide, which is false, because he genocide a city on Botha for the Bothans, being spies and stuff. So there's that little arc there. And so that's just one, incident. So they're saying that this is the first time Palpatine ever did something in the past lore, in the original canon, the canon. He never did something like that. Keeping this issue in mind, it certainly seems as though Emperor Palpatine has dropped all the pretense he once used to his advantage. In Disney's lore, Sidious has apparently dropped the mask of the benevolent ruler during the original trilogy, seen as how this massively dark moment where he's bombed his own subjects on this throne world taking place before Return of the Jedi. Again, like I said, one incident was when he basically killed a city on Botha. There's other incidences or events where he has done that even in the dark time, and he's also captured slaves to build his Death Star, all of that. So I think this person does not know the lore, does not recognize, hasn't read it, to think that this is the first time Palpatine's ever taken off the mask and shown his true intentions, which is not true. He had people like his hands. He had Vader, Tarkin, all of them to do his biddings as well. However, this is a very clever change, one that speaks to the nature of the empire itself, and a turning point that likely happened for Palpatine closer to the beginning of the original trilogy. Now let's go back to Andor. I know in Andor they killed people, they enslaved people, and they put people in prison, which is all the mechanics, all of what Palpatine had control of. His mask is already off during that time, right? And then it says, explaining why he abandoned the facets during the Galactic Civil War with the rebellion. It's worth noting that Palpatine didn't care about the rebellion and pockets of growing insurgents before A New Hope, as seen in Andor and Rogue One. Those trying to resist his power often had to do so using dark tactics, and this is where it gets crazy. Dark tactics themselves, which only serves to serve the strength of the dark side of the Force. See, okay, I'm gonna read that again. Those trying to resist his power often had to do so during using dark tactics themselves, which only serve to strengthen the dark side of the Force. See, this is where Disney is going. So, because the rebels fought back, it's feeding the dark side of the Force, making everything else darker. See what they're doing here? And however, the emergence of Luke Skywalker training to be a Jedi and the destruction of the Death Star certainly changed things for Palpatine, especially considering what the battle station was meant to do for Palpatine himself beyond its abilities to blow up the planets. So Luke Skywalker in the Disney lore, he was not very effective. Palpatine, he still maintained control in a way. And that's the direction they're going with the Star Wars lore for like 40 or 30 some odd years. The true power of the Death Star was not its super laser. It was the fear it could impose on the entire galaxy using the simple threat of planetary annihilation. Fear that Palpatine can use to his great advantage. Well, Vader was the fear too. Tarkin was the fear. His hands were the fear. Explaining why he dissolved the Imperial Senate just before the Death Star's completion. Palpatine had only kept the Senate intact to maintain the idea that he cared and listened to the flight of the systems under his rule. Not necessarily because, like I said, Moffs were stationed in different sections or sectors of the galaxy to govern. That was already established long before he dissolved the Senate. With the Death Star, all pretenses could be dropped. However, the galaxy didn't just forget once the battle station was destroyed. It's not exactly a mask that can be put back on once taken off. Like I said, he'd taken that mask off a long time ago. And that's why the rebellion started emerging into different sects, because in different areas, because the rebellion at first was splintered into different forces, basically, all with the same common cause. So if Palpatine was trying to be this all innocent ruler, then why would these rebel sections of the galaxy start emerging way before the OT? It's not exactly a mask that can be put back on once taken off. Not only does this inform Palpatine's blatantly dark actions after Empire Strikes Back in the aforementioned comic, but it also is likely why the second Death Star was built so quickly. Palpatine wanted the power back so he could no longer rely on the deceptions he employed in decades in the Star Wars timeline. So let's see what you guys have to say, because I didn't pause to see what you guys had to say. Let me go back. Let me see here. All right. OD stars, they also give people too much cereal in Andor. I noticed that. OG Star Wars, Palpatine didn't give a flying fuck whether people hated him or not. As long as he achieved unlimited power, he was all set. Correct. He didn't care if his mask was off. He had people to do his bidding. Palpatine had a public execution, mass genocides on star systems, spread of anti-alien hate. He was super-powered dictator, correct. So like I said, this person fails to understand the context of the lore. Just like the person that was contrived all those articles together, compiled. These people are screen rant, don't understand that Lucas was still planning out this stuff. Once again, authors do this all the time. It's not new. Let's see here. The change makes sense. Oh, get the fuck out of here, Screen Rat, you shillistic hacks, right? And let's see here. Y'all should have seen OG reaction on this article. Oh yeah, you're getting a more mild me. OG Star Wars is making sense that George has a bit of dry humor, especially since he's friends with Brian De Palma. And let's see here. And let's see here. So, what do you guys think? I know you guys already, I'm reading through some of this already. So, OG's away. Okay, so there we go. Let's see what else. Palpatine needs to put the mask back on. He's ugly, like fell off the tree and hit every branch down ugly. That's what the dark side did to him, I guess. And that Force lightning being sent back to him. OG Star Wars, I DM'd you an article from Screenrant a few years old and talks about him being completely evil. Wow, there you go. So my Screenrant has changed. So thank you guys for bearing with me through this cringe factor. And I guess that Dave Talk Star Wars is another cringe factor type material. I'm looking at to see what oh yeah, I think I've seen this article before, Screenrant. I'm looking at it right now. I think it might be on screen right now because I didn't stop sharing. Let me see here. Go back to that. There we go. Yeah, so there it is. So I just went and showed business off a little bit. But Star Wars, 17 Wicked Things Emperor Palpatine did before Episode 1. Okay, and so we're talking about Episode 1, but also what about after Episode 3? So that's the thing. So there you go, you guys. We're not going to go through this. We already know what he did. And that's Cringe Factor for you. Again, Dave Talk Star Wars and Screenrant. Thank you so much for the Cringe Factor. Thank you so much, Dave Talk Star Wars, for doing this so I can debunk some of the stuff that you put. Like I said, we'd be here still reading through all the articles and pulling up stuff to debunk these cherry-picked quotes here. And some of these quotes were taken out of context, like, oh, George not reading the EU. Doesn't mean it's not canon. Doesn't mean he didn't care. He just didn't have the time for it. And that's all. And let's see here. Also, Palpatine deviated from the rule of two because he never intended to be replaced by his apprentice. Really bit him in the ass in the end. I know. So it wasn't as he foreseen, right? And then also Palpatine deviated from, So there you go, you guys. A bit of Star Wars cringe here. 2 for 1 for you guys today. Talking about Star Wars lore, continuity. So tell me, let me know, what is your favorite historical timeline in the Star Wars history? So do you like the Old Republic timeline? Do you like the end of the Old Republic timeline, aka the prequel trilogy era? Do you like the Dark Times? That's between the OT and the PT. Do you like the OT, which is basically start of the Civil War? And that's the OT era, I guess you could say, the start of the Civil War. Do you like the New Republic era? Do you like the New Jedi Order era? Or do you like the Legacy era? So those are those 3 historical timelines within the huge historical timeline of Star Wars. So let me know. We're going to start closing out here. So I'm going to play another little bit of a commercial. What did I not play? Let's do this one.
The fate of the galaxy is now in your hands.
Do it.
With the new LEGO Star Wars Slave 1, you can load Captain Solo, arm your weapon systems, man the cockpit, and take off with the most feared ship in the galaxy. But watch out for rebel ships. No matter the enemy, no matter the firepower, you control the action. With the new LEGO Star Wars collection.
Again, for tuning in to CAF Chat this morning with me, discussing Star Wars, Cringe Factor, what's going on with the state of Star Wars as we know it today. I'm not going to get into like, is the Rey movie going to happen or not or whatever. That's just, if it happens, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So, there's no Civil War. There's none of that. But we're not going to get into that. That's not worth the conversation because it's just repeated rehashed bit of information that would never fruition, never had any truth to it whatsoever. So I ask you guys not to get him, fall into that trap because it's none of that never happened. Filoni's not taking over. Neither is Favreau. As far as we know it, Kennedy's still a part of Lucasfilm, and she has control. In fact, that interview that I listened to of the recent one from Dave Filoni from November, he talks highly about Kennedy, and so that is a bit of information too that shares that she's not gone. So there we go. So thank you guys for tuning in. No CAF chat this Thursday. Friday on the Space Scene, Tim is going to have an in-depth interview with Raging Rhino, so be there. I will be in Florida area, so I probably will tune in maybe, or if I'm too tired, then I'll catch the replay. I plan on being there at least to listen in a little bit because I'm having a 3-hour time change, so I want to, make sure that I'm refreshed and ready to go the next day. And then the Space Scene on the following Friday, there's no Space Scene on the 15th. So just to be aware of all of that. When I return, we will schedule our watch party with channel members. So be tuned for that. Stay tuned for that as well. So thank you guys again.
Prepare yourself for Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire.
With you. I don't know what
Empire has struck back with a vengeance.
And now we must leave our roles as master and student. It is time we became...
And thank you guys again. Now my mouse wants to be picky on what it clicks on. Like I barely brush through it and it clicks on there. So again, thank you guys for tuning in and putting up with my shenanigans as well. Have a good day and may the Force be with you.
Another happy landing.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.